What's up, everybody? Hi, I'm back with another Teddy Talk, and today I want to talk to you about a book I just finished reading last night, and it is called Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibañez. This book really took me by surprise. I don't tend to gravitate towards fantasy, especially not young adult fantasy. It's just not my thing, okay? But this book surprised me. I was interested in it because it takes place in Bolivia, or what the author has modeled after Bolivia, and her family is Bolivian, and so the book represents a lot of Bolivian culture, and I just thought that would be so fascinating. I speak Spanish, and anytime there's a book about Latin American culture, it automatically grabs my interest, even if it's not in a genre I typically read. So I chose this book from Book of the Month as one of my picks for January, and I'm so glad I did. I loved this book. I will say it started out slowly. It took me probably a good 50 pages to really get into it. I was getting a pedicure, and I always think that's a perfect time to start a new book because sometimes it takes me a little bit to get into a book, and I can't just be like, well, I'm bored, I'm gonna get up and do something else. No, I'm sitting there getting my pedicure. I have to just read my book. And so I started this while I was getting a pedicure about a week ago, and it was just okay. It was kind of like, okay, this is interesting, but it's not one that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to know what happens. So it took me a good 50 pages to get to that point, and then once I got about 50 pages in, I could not put this book down. I spent literally all day and night yesterday finishing this book, reading the last 300 pages. It's about 365 pages long, and so most of that I read in one day yesterday. And I mean, I wouldn't even stop to eat. That is how much I was engrossed in this story. It is the story of Jimena, who is a Bolivian young lady. I'm not sure entirely how old she is. I think she's about 18. It doesn't actually say, I don't think, her actual age, but it alludes to the fact that something happened 10 years ago when she was 8. So I think she's about 18. And she is the decoy for the Condesa. And so she has to play the role of the Condesa, do all of the things that the Condesa would do, but she's not really her. She's just taking her place so that nothing will happen to the real Condesa. And she's doing this because years ago, when she was little, there was a revolt and her parents died. And so the Condesa's aunt took her in and swapped her with the real Condesa in order so that she would have somewhere to live and grow up, and no one would know who she really was and that the Condesa wasn't really her. So she grows up pretending to be the Condesa. She is forced to take the false king's hand in marriage. King Atok is the false king who has taken over the other part of Incasisa, which is their land, which the author modeled after Bolivia. So she goes to marry the king, the false king. While she's spending time in enemy territory, she begins to really befriend and understand some of the people she thought were her enemies before, and she starts to learn that their lives before the revolt were not great. Really, what she starts to discover is that neither side is right, and what she wants is peace for her land. She doesn't want a ruler who's going to put one people group above the other. She wants everyone to be equal and free and at peace. If you haven't read the book, you might want to stop now. If you don't care about spoilers, continue on. So, she discovers that what she really wants is for the princesa, who is King Atok's sister, to rule Incasisa. And so she has to make a really terrible, hard decision to betray her condesa and fight for the princesa to win. So essentially she's not switching sides, she's just not taking sides anymore. She's saying, I want peace, I think this person is going to be the best ruler of our country, and I'm going to have to make a choice so that that can happen. And in doing that, she has to give up her deep, lifelong friendship with Catalina. Catalina feels very betrayed and doesn't want to forgive her. But throughout the story, it's just so action-packed, so much adventure, so much fantasy, so much magic, and love, even. It's like a romance, a fantasy, a mystery even. There's a mystery component because the vigilante, we don't know who he is. There's a masked vigilante that is going around and fighting for both sides, really, just for justice, for peace. And we don't know who he is until later in the book. We have a pretty good idea who he is, but you don't find out for sure until the very end, and then it is who we want it to be, who she wants it to be, the person that she's kind of falling for, who was once an enemy and now is not. So there's a romance aspect, there's mystery, there's fantasy. The reason it's called Woven in Moonlight is because Jimena can weave using the moonlight. She has this special magic gift from Luna, which is like their god, which is the moon. When she moves into the castle in enemy territory, she discovers that if she weaves with color instead of just white and uses the moonlight too, then her weavings will come to life. So she would like weave all of these animals. That's why there's all these animals on the cover. These are all like her weavings. She has woven all of these, and they've come to life and become her friends, and they end up helping her fight in the end for justice and peace. So there's magic, fantasy, love, mystery. I was pleasantly surprised. I give this book 5 stars. I think even if you don't typically like fantasy, you should give this one a try, because I did. I loved it. Join me soon for another Teddy Talk. Read your heart out, and bye!